Dead by Daylight is a 4v1 asymmetrical horror game that is constantly evolving, with the developer team at Behavior Interactive adding in new chapter content every 3 months that more often than not includes 2 to 3 new characters with 3 unique perks each, a million different status effects that can impact gameplay, and a menagerie of horror icons mixed in with original killers. It can be a lot to take in at once. I have roughly 2,000 hours in the game between console and PC, and I've been playing since May of 2020. Learning the game on both sides was a daunting task at this time. I can only imagine how overwhelming it feels to new players. While I'm by no means qualified to tell anyone how to play the game, I hope that these basic tips can help you learn the survivor side of the game a little bit better and make you feel more confident heading into a match. Tip number 1, stick to the inside, not the outside. More specifically, stop walking around or hiding on the edge and corners of the map during the match. I see this a lot with new players, and I can understand why many new players think it's a good idea. There are rocks, walls, and often bushes to hide around the edge of the map, and the killer is more likely to stick to the inside of the map checking areas than poke around the outside. While that may be true to a degree, you will eventually get caught, and when you do, you'll have nowhere to run. The killer is very likely to get a hit on you, and if you're already injured, you're handing them a free hook. It can be tempting to stick to the outside edge to heal away from all the action, but please trust me when I say that this is a great way to hand the killer easy pressure. Instead of hiding in a corner, observe your surroundings carefully and take note of your available resources: windows, pallets, and tiles. Putting these objects between you and the killer gives you a greater chance of surviving for longer when the killer finds you and engages in a chase, and can even give you the opportunity to escape completely. Additionally, healing next to a pallet is going to be infinitely safer than healing in a dead zone. At the very least, if the killer finds you, you can stun them with the pallet and buy yourself precious seconds to run to another loop and try to extend the chase. Tip number 2. Avoid 3-genning early. To understand what 3-genning is, you first need to understand what generator layouts are in-game. If you've played a match of Dead by Daylight, you know that survivors have to repair generators to escape the trial, and killers need to stop survivors from repairing generators in order to buy time to sacrifice them to the entity before the trial is over. A total of 7 generators spawn on the map every trial. Survivors have to repair 5 generators to power the exit gates and escape. On every map layout, there are always 3 generators that spawn in close proximity. This is the 3-gen, and it's critical that you and your team knock one of those 3 generators out as early as possible to prevent a difficult endgame. A great perk to run that will help prevent 3-genning is Deja Vu, which will show you the 3-gen at the beginning of the match and give you a boost to repairing generators that are in close proximity. It's a base survivor perk that is readily available if you've bought the game, which I'm assuming you have if you're watching this video. Another way to prevent 3-genning is by finding the centermost generator and knocking it out as early as possible. A great rule of thumb to follow is if you or another survivor do a generator on one side of the map, you should go to the opposite side of the map and do the next generator there. Splitting your generators this way will help prevent a 3-gen setup at the end of the game when you only need to repair one more generator to power the exit gates and escape. By having your gens split early on as well, the killer has to spend more time moving around the map from generator to generator, giving your team an easier time at repairing generators as the match goes on. Tip number 3, do not use self-care. There's been a running joke for years in the Dead by Daylight community that self-care is the best killer perk in the game, and the reason it's so funny is because it's true. Self-care is a Claudette teachable, and it comes with the base game, so it's very popular among new players because the ability to heal yourself in a game where health states can make or break a match sounds very meta. While it's one of the few perks in the game that allows a survivor to heal themselves, the trade-off is that the heal is 35% of the normal healing speed. This is extremely inefficient and greatly hinders your chances of escaping the trial. A full self-care heal without slowdowns to healing takes about 68 seconds. By comparison, a generator repair takes 90 seconds. You should never spend that much time healing yourself. The easiest way to counter this is by having a teammate heal you. If you're playing with friends, this is a pretty simple task. If you're a solo queue demon like myself, it can be challenging to find teammates to heal you when everyone is running around the map doing different things, but it is doable. Bond is a great information perk that shows you the auras of survivors within a certain range and can tell you where your teammates are and what they're doing. I use it all the time in solo queue, even at 2,000 hours, because it gives me a lot of value, and I've used it to get quick heals from teammates when I need them. The best part is that Bond is a Dwight teachable, so it's already available when you buy the game. You can also bring a medkit. Medkits aren't nearly as efficient as they were a year ago, but it's still an easy way to heal yourself quickly in the match without taking too much time. And while we're on the subject of healing, tip number 4, get comfortable with being injured. It is inevitable that you are going to get injured at some point in your matches, and while it is best to get healed as soon as you can, that's not always an option. There are also a few killers where healing is inefficient because of how quickly and easily you can get injured by them or their power. Plague and Legion come to mind immediately. You will also run into killers that adopt a hit-and-run playstyle that involves injuring a survivor, leaving them, and finding the next one to injure. Sometimes healing just isn't an option right away, and that's okay. A general rule of thumb I use is, if I'm injured but I haven't been hooked yet, I try to knock out a generator or save a teammate from a hook. Whatever is going on in the match, I try to contribute to the objective as best I can. Usually, I'll find a teammate in the process who will heal me, and we'll be back to business as usual. A great base survivor perk that can give you value out of being injured is Resilience. At max level, it gives you a 9% speed bonus to all actions in-game, shaving time off of healing, repairing, unhooking, vaulting, opening exit gates, basically any action. I've had matches where this has been the difference between escaping and dying. While not every match will be so dramatic, it can make a pretty consistent difference. You can also slap on Adrenaline for an instant heal and a quick speed boost once the last gen is completed. This saves a lot of time if you're unhooked after the last gen is done, and it can even save you in chase against the killer if you're about to get downed and the last gen pops. Boom, you're full health again, and you can run the killer just that little bit longer. Tip number 5, be a team player. A wise and wizened elder once said, teamwork is an essential part of Dead by Daylight, and I've found that to be true in my time playing the game. The tutorial tells you this twice, so there's gotta be something to it, right? The best way to ensure your survival in a match is by working with your team. There are several ways to do this, and you should be striving to meet most of these in your matches. Try to split hooks evenly. If the rest of your team has been hooked and you haven't yet, you should try to take pressure from them by getting in chases with the killer. It's going to happen eventually. You will very rarely have matches where you never get chased or hooked, and it's not always a good thing to avoid that. If your team is taking all the heat from the killer, it's very likely that the killer will get someone out of the game early, and it is much harder to survive in a 3v1, especially if you still have generators left. You won't always be able to take chases. Sometimes the killers are going to focus 1 or 2 people out of the game, even if you're throwing yourself in front of them to try to take pressure. When this happens, the best thing that you can do for your team is working on generators. This punishes the killer for hard focusing on one survivor and can guarantee multiple people escaping the match. In rare and exciting instances, you can get everyone out if the person being chased is good with their resources and you've got pressure evenly split. Also, please try to avoid immersive playstyles. At the end of the day, you bought the game and you can play it however you want. Hiding from the killer throughout the match may seem like the best way to survive, but if you go into a locker or crouch in a corner every time you hear the terror radius, You'll never get anything done, and you'll force your teammates to take all the heat. You'll lose more of these matches than you'll win. While it can be intimidating to get in chases at first and frustrating when you get down quickly, the more you interact with the killer, the better you'll get at going against them. Tip number 6, use your resources wisely. As a survivor, you have a variety of resources at your disposal in the match to help you in chases against the killer. There are safe and unsafe tiles that you can loop and mind game around, extending chases and wasting time so your teammates can work toward completing the objective. One of the best resources at your disposal is pallets. Pallets are propped up at loops around the map and can be used to stun the killer temporarily, extend safe loops, or lengthen unsafe loops and make it a little bit easier to mind game around them. However, pallets are a temporary resource. Once they're thrown, you can't place them back up. Unless you have a perk to do that, but that's another video for another time. Killers can destroy downed pallets as well, completely removing them from the match and making loops that can be strong and in some cases god tier much weaker. A common thing I see playing with and going against newer survivors is that they'll instantly throw pallets when the killer is in their line of sight, but nowhere near hitting them. Pre-dropping can be effective to a degree, but not if you're throwing every pallet at the top of the match. If you use all your resources early on, you're not going to have anything to work with the rest of the game. The best strategy is to hug loops tightly and run around the pallet as much as possible before you have to throw it. This eats up the killer's time, keeps you alive longer, and gives your teammates more time to do generators. It also preserves resources so your teammates have more to work with when they inevitably get chased. Tip number 7, be aware of you and your surroundings. A common mistake new players make is running around the map without taking into account what's going on around them and what their surroundings look like. This can make it very easy for the killer to sneak up on you and get an easy hit or down, and make the overall match much more punishing for you and your team. Before you start working on a generator, take stock of where you are and where you can run if the killer shows up. Being close to a safe window vault can buy you time and keep you alive for seconds longer, which can buy you even more time in the long run. Another trap newer players can find themselves in is keeping their camera locked on the generator as they're repairing. Survivor is in third-person perspective, and it's easy to lock your camera into looking at the generator and what's in front of you, making it easier for killers, stealthy and otherwise, to sneak up on you. Get comfortable early on with panning your camera back and forth, keeping an eye on where the killer could be coming from. This will give you time to run away from the killer in general, and if you're going against a stealthy killer like Ghostface, you can break them out of their power or avoid giving them said power quickly and effectively. Tip number 8, set small, reasonable goals for yourself. If you take nothing else from this video, please take this with you. Dead by Daylight is a 4v1 asymmetrical horror game that is constantly evolving, meaning that the game in its current state is as diverse and complex as it has ever been. There are so many moving parts to this game that can take hundreds of hours to properly learn and master, and that makes it so much easier to get frustrated with the game and give up on it. Wanting to escape every single match is a highly unreasonable goal no matter what your skill level is at the game. Especially so when you're just starting out and learning the ropes. You are going to die more than you are going to escape, at least when you're still learning the basics, and that's okay. A good way to prevent burnout or getting tilted is by setting achievable goals. Maybe you want to get better at chases. Try to run the killer for 30 seconds. Work on learning how to chain tiles together and better use your resources, or even just get better at looking behind you periodically in chase to see where the killer is and what they're doing. Maybe you want to knock out one generator before you get into a chase with the killer. Craft a build around gen repair, get better at hitting those skill checks, and set your team up for better success by knocking out generators that are clustered together early. Maybe you want to be more altruistic. Go for unhooks and heal your teammates when they're injured, taking a little more pressure away from the killer. It's important that you give yourself room to make mistakes, to learn, and to grow in anything that you do. And this is no different. By setting achievable goals for yourself, you're giving yourself an opportunity to build on a skill and develop a play style that suits you, which can make the game more enjoyable for you in the long run. I know for me, the second I stopped equating success with escapes was the second I started enjoying the game that much more. Giving myself small achievable goals like using my resources better or learning flashlight blinds helped motivate me to build on my skills while giving me room for error and improvement. And it's helped my overall outlook on the game. It's the best piece of advice I can offer, and I hope it helps you as you play the game. Thank you so much for watching this video. While this is by no means intended to be a comprehensive guide to playing Survivor, because if I'm being completely honest with you, there's so much more I could add for that, and this video would be at least twice as long. It is intended to identify some common mistakes I see in newer players, and I frankly have done myself, and give you options with your gameplay. I hope you found it useful. Leave a comment letting me know what you learned from this or what you found most helpful and what you'd like to see more of in the future. I'm still getting my YouTube channel off the ground, but if you want to check out my live streams where I play a mix of Dead by Daylight and variety, I stream on my Twitch channel multiple times a week, and I'd love to see you stop by sometime. Thank you again for watching, and best of luck in the fog.